The rain hammered against the windows of our small cottage in the Cotswolds, each drop a relentless drumbeat against the silence that had settled between Bronwyn and me. Alaric, a software engineer, had always found solace in the predictability of code, the clean logic of algorithms. But lately, my life had become a tangled mess of uncertainty, a program riddled with bugs I couldn't identify. I was 46, and Bronwyn, my wife of 15 years, had started acting different. It wasn't one big thing, more like a collection of subtle shifts that had gradually eroded the foundation of our marriage. It started with the late nights at work. Bronwyn, a talented graphic designer, had always kept regular hours, but suddenly she was burning the midnight oil, working on a big project for a new client. I didn't question it at first. I trusted her implicitly. But then came the whispered phone calls, the way she'd abruptly end conversations when I entered the room, the secretive smiles she'd exchange with her phone screen. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, the anxieties of a man growing older, but the feeling persisted, a knot tightening in my stomach with each passing day. One evening, while Bronwyn was supposedly at a client dinner in Stow-on-the-Wold, I decided to surprise her with a bouquet of her favorite lilies. I knew the restaurant she'd mentioned, the Porch House, a charming little place with a roaring fireplace and exposed beams. I pictured her face lighting up as I presented her with the flowers, a small gesture to remind her of my love. But when I arrived, the hostess informed me that Bronwyn wasn't there. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice wavering slightly. "Perhaps she's waiting at the bar." The hostess checked again, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. "No, sir. I'm very sorry, but there's no one here by that name." The lilies suddenly felt heavy in my hands, their sweet fragrance now a sickly reminder of my own naivety. I drove home in a daze, the rain blurring the already winding roads. When Bronwyn finally arrived, hours later, her cheeks flushed and her eyes sparkling, she claimed the dinner had run late, that the client was particularly demanding. I stared at her, the lilies wilting on the passenger seat, and a cold wave of realization washed over me. She was lying. But why? The next few weeks were a blur of suspicion and anxiety. I started paying closer attention to Bronwyn's phone, her emails, her social media activity. I knew it was wrong, a violation of her privacy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly amiss. I even considered hiring a private investigator, but the thought of stooping to that level, of officially acknowledging my fears, was too much to bear. Then one Saturday morning, while Bronwyn was out grocery shopping, I stumbled upon a clue that shattered my world. I was cleaning out her study, a room she usually kept meticulously organized, when I found a small velvet box hidden in the back of a drawer. My heart pounded in my chest as I opened it. Inside, nestled on a bed of satin, was a diamond necklace, a delicate piece with a single teardrop-shaped pendant. It was beautiful, exquisite, and undeniably expensive. But it wasn't something I had ever given her, or even seen before. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, the room spinning around me. Who had given her this necklace? And why had she hidden it from me? The answer, I knew, was staring me right in the face, a truth I had been desperately trying to avoid. Bronwyn was having an affair. The realization hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath and leaving me trembling. I sank into her desk chair, the necklace clutched in my hand, and wept. I wept for the love we had shared, for the future we had planned, for the man I thought I knew. When Bronwyn returned, her arms laden with groceries, I confronted her. I didn't shout or scream, I simply held out the necklace and asked, "Where did this come from?" Her face paled, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. She stammered, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Bronwyn," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Just tell me the truth." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she broke down. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed to everything. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the client dinners, it had all been a lie. She had been seeing someone else, a man named Griffin, a wealthy art collector she had met at a gallery opening in Burford. She claimed it had started as a harmless flirtation, a way to escape the monotony of our quiet life, but it had quickly spiraled into something more. She swore she didn't mean to hurt me, that she still loved me, but the words rang hollow in the face of her betrayal. I listened in stunned silence, my heart shattering into a million pieces. How could she do this to me? How could she betray our vows, our love, our life together? I had given her everything, poured my heart and soul into our marriage, and she had repaid me with deceit and infidelity. The pain was unbearable, a gaping wound that threatened to consume me whole. "I'm so sorry, Alaric," she sobbed, reaching out to touch me. "Please forgive me. I'll do anything to make it up to you." I recoiled from her touch, the sight of her filled with disgust. "Forgive you," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "How can I ever forgive you? You've destroyed everything we had." I told her to leave, to pack her bags and get out of my house, my life. I couldn't bear to look at her any longer, to be in the same room with the woman who had so callously broken my heart. Bronwyn left that night, taking with her a suitcase full of clothes and a lifetime of memories. I watched her go, standing at the window as her taxi disappeared into the darkness, and felt a profound sense of emptiness wash over me. My life, as I knew it, was over. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, was gone, replaced by a stranger I no longer recognized. In the days that followed, I struggled to cope with the fallout of Bronwyn's betrayal. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything. I spent hours staring at the walls, replaying our marriage in my mind, searching for clues I had missed, signs I had ignored. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, trapped in a world of pain and despair. My friends and family tried to offer support, but their words of comfort felt hollow and meaningless. They told me I was better off without her, that I deserved someone who truly loved me, but their platitudes did little to ease the ache in my heart. I felt lost, adrift at sea without a compass or a map. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly began to piece my life back together. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the familiar rhythm of coding. I started exercising again, running along the Cotswold Way, pushing myself to my physical limits to escape the emotional pain. I even started seeing a therapist, a kind and understanding woman who helped me process my grief and anger. The therapist, named Meredith, helped me understand that Bronwyn's betrayal was not a reflection of my worth, but rather a consequence of her own insecurities and failings. She encouraged me to focus on myself, to rediscover my passions and interests, to build a new life for myself, one that was not defined by my marriage. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain was overwhelming, when I longed for the comfort and familiarity of my old life. But I refused to give in to despair. I refused to let Bronwyn's betrayal destroy me. I was determined to emerge from this experience stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. One evening, while browsing through an online art forum, I stumbled upon a post that caught my eye. It was a discussion about a recent exhibition at a prestigious gallery in London, featuring the works of a promising new artist. The artist's name was Griffin. My blood ran cold as I clicked on the link to his website. There he was, the man who had stolen my wife, his face smug and self-satisfied. As I scrolled through his online gallery, I noticed something familiar about one of his paintings. It was a portrait of a woman, a beautiful woman with fiery red hair and piercing green eyes. A woman who bore a striking resemblance to Bronwyn. I clicked on the painting to enlarge it, and my heart skipped a beat. Around the woman's neck was a diamond necklace, a delicate piece with a single teardrop-shaped pendant, the same necklace I had found hidden in Bronwyn's study. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Griffin hadn't just stolen my wife, he had also used her as a muse, immortalizing her infidelity in his art. A surge of anger coursed through me, a burning desire for revenge. I wanted to expose him, to ruin his reputation, to make him pay for what he had done. But as I sat there, staring at the painting, a different idea began to form in my mind. A more subtle, more calculated form of revenge. I knew that Griffin's art was his life, his passion, his everything. And I knew that any scandal, any hint of impropriety could destroy his career. So I decided to play the long game. I started researching Griffin's background, his connections, his vulnerabilities. I discovered that he had a history of shady business dealings, that he had a reputation for exploiting his artists, that he had a string of broken relationships in his wake. I also learned that he was deeply insecure, obsessed with his image, and terrified of failure. Armed with this information, I began to subtly undermine him, to sow seeds of doubt and suspicion in his professional and personal life. I anonymously leaked information about his shady business dealings to the press, triggering a series of investigations that threatened to expose his fraudulent practices. I contacted his former artists, encouraging them to speak out about his exploitative behavior, creating a wave of negative publicity that tarnished his reputation. I even befriended some of his acquaintances, subtly poisoning their minds against him, planting seeds of doubt about his character and his motives. Slowly but surely, Griffin's world began to unravel. His gallery sales plummeted, his exhibitions were canceled, his relationships crumbled. He became a pariah, ostracized by the art world and shunned by his former friends. As Griffin's career spiraled downward, I watched with a sense of grim satisfaction. I knew that my actions were not entirely noble, that I was stooping to his level, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice being served. He had stolen my wife, betrayed my trust, and shattered my heart. Now he was paying the price. One day I received a message from Bronwyn. She wanted to meet to talk. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to face her again. But curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop in Oxford. When I saw her, I was struck by how much she had changed. She looked tired, haggard, and worn. The spark that had once lit up her eyes was gone, replaced by a dull, lifeless gaze. She apologized for everything, for the pain she had caused, for the betrayal she had inflicted. She claimed she had made a terrible mistake, that she regretted her affair with Griffin, that she missed me terribly. I listened in silence, my heart unmoved by her words. I had long since forgiven her, not for her sake, but for my own. I had moved on, built a new life for myself, and I no longer felt the burning anger and resentment that had once consumed me. "I appreciate your apology, Bronwyn," I said, "but it's too late, we're done. There's no going back." I told her about my revenge against Griffin, about how I had systematically destroyed his career. She listened in stunned silence, her face pale with horror. "How could you do that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "How could you be so cruel?" "He deserved it," I said, my voice cold and hard. "He stole my wife, betrayed my trust, and shattered my heart. He got what he deserved." Bronwyn shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You've become a monster, Alaric," she said. "I don't even recognize you anymore." "Maybe you never did," I replied, standing up to leave. "Maybe I was always a monster, hiding beneath a veneer of decency. Or maybe you just brought out the worst in me." I left her sitting there, alone and miserable, and walked out into the sunshine. As I walked away, I felt a sense of closure, a sense of finally putting the past behind me. I had exacted my revenge, and now it was time to move on, to embrace the future, to find happiness again. I eventually sold the cottage in the Cotswolds, too many memories clinging to its walls. I moved to London, to a sleek, modern apartment overlooking the Thames. I started dating again, cautiously at first, but eventually finding love with a woman named Isolde, a vibrant and independent architect who appreciated my intelligence, my humor, and my scars. We built a life together, a life filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. And although the memory of Bronwyn's betrayal would always linger in the back of my mind, it no longer defined me. I had survived, I had thrived, and I had emerged from the ashes of my broken marriage a stronger and better man. Years later, I received a letter from Bronwyn. She was living in a small village in France, working as a waitress in a cafe. She had lost everything: her career, her friends, her reputation. She was alone, penniless, and filled with regret. She apologized again for her betrayal, begging for my forgiveness. I read the letter with a sense of detachment, feeling neither anger nor pity. I had moved on, and her fate was no longer my concern. I tossed the letter into the fireplace and watched it burn, a final act of closure. In the end, I learned that revenge, while satisfying in the moment, is not the ultimate answer. True healing comes from forgiveness, from letting go of the past, and from embracing the future with hope and optimism. Bronwyn's betrayal had been a painful and devastating experience, but it had also been a catalyst for growth and transformation. It had forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to rediscover my own strengths, and to build a new life for myself, one that was more authentic, more fulfilling, and more meaningful than I could have ever imagined. And for that I was, in a strange way, grateful.